Welcome to The Driven Entrepreneur, where we sit down with visionaries, trailblazers, and entrepreneurs and discover why and how they do what they do. We'll get the backstory, plus plenty of life and business lessons along the way. Here's your host, Matt Brauning.
Hey, this episode is brought to you by my very own NLP practitioner course. I've been teaching neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, for nearly 15 years. It is the most powerful tool for communication on the planet, and it can be yours today. For a very limited time, I'm giving away my entire NLP course workbook for free. Go to nlpwithmatt.com. All the patterns, all the tools, and the techniques of NLP in the complete course workbook, the same one that we use to teach our live certification classes, yours free. nlpwithmatt.com. Get it today. Let's get back to the show.
Hello, welcome back to The Driven Entrepreneur. This week I am so blessed and so excited. I have, sometimes we bring in a fresh new interview with someone that I've never met before, and I want to introduce you to someone that I'm excited to meet. This week, I'm excited for you to meet someone I've known for many years now. A good friend is coming all the way from Austin, Texas, Miss Sandra Dee Robinson. She's a very well known as a television actress, soap opera star. She's an author, international speaker, TV, radio host. She became established with a lot of major roles. She had years acting on the soap opera Another World, Sunset Beach, Bold and the Beautiful, my mom's favorite, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, The Bay. She's guest starred on all sorts of primetime shows. You've seen her on CSI Miami, Criminal Minds, 2.5 Men, a bunch of others. She's also founded as a coach, Charisma on Camera, doing performance coaching all the way back in 2010, and her equine-assisted coaching program, Charismatic Cowgirl, in 2018. That's pretty cool. So we're going to get into that and a lot about how animals can coach us even more than we can coach us. She's master certified in NLP, hypnosis, stage mastery, and well-known trained in natural lifemanship and so many more things. But she is the coach, and more than anything, she is just one of the most authentic, sweet, wonderful human beings that you could ever spend time with. And I'm excited to introduce Sandra Dee Robinson. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's such a great thing to be here. I mean, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. So when you asked me to be on the show, I was like, yay, let's do this.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Fun.
That's the first time I've heard someone say I'm a fan of yours. So, you want an autograph or something? I also didn't say in your new bio, you're also married to a world famous Hollywood stuntman. So first thing I want to say is, how is that? Never a dull moment in the Robinson household?
Yeah, never a dull moment. Yeah. When you marry an adrenaline junkie of that degree, you never know what's going to happen. Like, he just joined the volunteer fire department, and people go, "Don't you worry about that." I'm like, I can't stop them. That's just kind of.
Well, and I'm guessing as a volunteer fireman in Texas, that's probably one of the safer things he does. And I was going to ask you, does he bring is that the personality that always shows up, or is it like, does he go to work and go, okay, that's my stunt career, and I come home and I'm a little more of a boring, not boring, but I'm going to read a book and relax?
Like average Joe kind of dude.
Yeah.
Neither one of us relax very well, but I do have to say he relaxes much better than I do. So
is he like on stunting, and then when he comes home, he's like, I'm not doing that stuff? Or you said he's kind of an adrenaline junkie. Does he find adrenaline stuff outside of work?
Oh, totally. In fact, most of his more severe injuries have come from playing.
What kinds of things does he like to, like what?
He was a professional motorcycle racer.
Of course he
on
was.
That circuit. Of course, yeah. And the ones were like 160 mile an hour with the knee on the ground kind of guys.
Okay.
And
I can visualize that exactly.
Yeah. So
with the knee on the ground, that was good.
He had a very serious high side on that, which means that he came off on a certain direction in the bike that is very bad.
Yes.
So he was doing some crazy skydiving stuff for a long time. Like I think he said 1,100 takeoffs and no landings, as he puts it.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you guys talked about that. And he broke his femur on that. And typical of my husband, he had this big jump, like this big stunt jump that he had planned for the following week, I think, when he broke his femur. And he's lying in the field, and his friend comes over and looks at him and yells back over his shoulder, goes, call 911. And Alan looks at the guy, looks down at his leg, who is from the femur going off, his leg's going 45 degrees in the wrong direction, of course. And Alan says, wait, don't call yet. Maybe we can fix it.
Maybe we can fix it. It's only a
obviously
femur.
He was in shock because that was not. Yeah. So this is, now he does search and rescue. So that's a big part of his adrenaline rush, like, search and rescue, and now the volunteer fire department stuff. And he called me last night on his way home from a meeting at his new fire department. And I said, how'd it go? He goes, great. He goes, I got to drive a fire engine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you, 6? I'm like,
I mean, yeah, like that sounds like dad camp. Like we all want to do that.
Exactly. He is. He's like a 6-year-old. People say, do you have kids? I'm like, I can't possibly have another child. Like, that's crazy,
How long ago did you guys move to Austin again now?
6 years.
Because it's been a while, 6 years. Yeah. It feels like forever, but not that long, but it is. Yeah. And you've settled in. So now, like, describe kind of the lifestyle. You have the animals, and you have the horses, and you have, the kind of farmland. How much space are you sitting on? Not bragging. I'm just kind of want to paint the picture of, life in Texas.
I tell you, I made a mistake the other day where I went to go visit a new friend's ranch, a horse guy around here, and I could just see forever, and it seemed to all be his property. And I stupidly asked, well, how many acres do you have? And he looked at me, and I realized this is a horrible insult to do that in Texas.
Really?
Because he looked at me, he goes, you don't ask that. You might as well ask me how much money I have in my wallet. And I went,
wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a thing. So okay. I will answer.
So you have a certain amount of space, which is great.
But we don't have that much. When we moved here, we were in California because we had to be there for a long time. But when we left California, we felt like we had so much space, like we have so much acreage. And by Texas standards, we kind of have like the equivalent of a condo with some animals on it. It's, my friends here have like real ranches. We would never call this a ranch,
Yeah. So you're not like the 80
hundreds of cattle.
Yeah.
We've just got a few acres and some horses and, a gentleman farm, I guess you could call it. But
hey, I mean, I can't tell you how much I get that because, I grew up in California 38 years and I moved out to Michigan and, just being out here, you go, wait a minute, the neighbor's far away. This is incredible. And like the space is so, so different. Now, you said, of course, you came from LA and you were there for a while. I don't, I know some of your story and I know like your bio story and everything, but tell me, when did you decide you wanted to get into acting? Because that was really like the major thing. That was the big kind of career move early on. Were you like one of those little girls that said like, this is going to be me? Or is this something that you started doing a little bit later on and realized that you were going to be doing it?
It's interesting. I did say that, apparently. I remember one of the family stories is that I said something like, I was going to be an actress when a neighbor came to pick me up, walk me home from the bus stop or something. And I think I was maybe 5. But my earliest recollection of wanting to actually do that was, I think, I always been in front of the camera since I was 11. So at a photo shoot that my sister went to, the photographer said, can I take some pictures of your sister? And then I discovered that I had a value, maybe. And when I then discovered that I could represent characters and I didn't have to be me, that was even better. Because
why was it better to be someone else?
Why was it better? I think like a lot of people, we are given, I just was listening to your interview with Mia a little bit ago. And, she had brought up the fact that when we're kids, we look at our parents as being all knowing.
Yes.
That whatever they say is right, even if it isn't, but we own it as being real. And that was kind of what I did. I mean, my father didn't say much. He was loving in his own way, but my mother was not. And a lot of the words that she said to me were extremely hurtful and devaluing. And it went on for, all my life. But when I found that I could be someone else, then I was actually told by her, life would be better if you hadn't been born. So when you hear that from a parent and you own that, it's one of the reasons that I am such an advocate for my clients whenever, because we were asking like, how do I describe you? And I'm like, well, basically what it comes down to is all the work that I do. It's communication and connection. And the most important connection is in the relationship that you have with yourself.
Well
and
said.
believing the truth about you that comes from the divine, that comes from God, that comes from, your creator, as opposed to what somebody, whether it was a well-meaning parent or in my case, a not well-meaning parent, whatever somebody told you that was false. So
That's
it's
really
actually
good.
finding the strength within yourself that you've already been given to reach your potential,
And when you just said, like, even a well-meaning parent, because you realize that we talk a lot, I think, in the personal development space and coaching space about, false things, right? Like, oh, this
Mhm.
limiting belief, or my mom or dad said this and it was
Right.
negative. But I really love your point that it's like, what's the source really for knowing who you are? And
Yeah.
I love that. If you know that, hey, my creator says this about me, that means that I don't, whether my dad says you're awesome or you're terrible or you're a good fisherman or you're bad at it. It's like, even if he
Right.
says something good, it's like, that's not necessarily true either. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
just because they're the most significant forces in my
Yeah.
life for this age, why do I need to focus on that completely? But that pushed you early on into
Yeah.
this whole
Well,
career of starting to act and becoming someone else, as you said.
yeah. And I think I was able to commit so fully to it because it was almost a survival mechanism. And I find that I worked and still work with artists of all different types. So whether they're actors, dancers, singers, musicians, even fine artists, a lot of them will put their work first and like, here you go, and they hide behind it. I definitely did that, and because of the type of work that I chose, and there I am on television. I have this fan following. I had people walking up to me, and I had opportunities to represent charities where I had to quote unquote be myself, and that's when I would fall to pieces.
Oh, and
You
they
have to tell me
said,
to be
no,
anybody,
you're not the character from the soap opera. You just need to
right?
be Sandra.
Right, and I don't want to be that because that's not of any good. That's where I came from. So that's, talk about limiting beliefs, dude. That's one of the reasons that I was so intrigued by NLP for one thing, for, kind of what you do, and understanding that you can override those things and that we have the power to do that. And I always ask somebody if they're, just really simply, if they're feeling something that they can't do, if they say, I can't do this, I said, whose voice is that telling you? Is it yours or is it God's? If it's neither one of those, you got to return it to sender.
Return to sender.
Yeah.
And I want to
You
get a
don't
little
own it.
more into this, but just before we move on, I would be so remiss, and so would my mom, if I didn't ask you a couple quick career questions. Can we do that?
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right. So your first was your first big soap Another World? Was that
Yeah.
the kind of
I
that was
kind of
the
grew
and that
up
was
on that
like
show.
8 years or something? Do I remember that
No,
right?
all told, it was 9. I was there and
9.
then I left. It's very incestuous, the whole like daytime soap thing. So I left. I went to a few other shows and ended up coming back to it.
Yeah, I
But
tell
yeah,
you,
I
like we hate that, right? Like
first
as
job.
a daytime fan, you hate
Yeah.
when you love it, but you hate it when all of a sudden your favorite character shows up on another show, and you're like, wait a minute, no, that's Jack.
Right.
He's
Exactly.
not this guy. What are we talking about? And so
Exactly.
you've been to quite a few different ones. Another World was the big one. Both, and I know
Yeah.
General Hospital was a short stint, but if I remember, you played Felicia, one of the Felicias,
Yes,
right?
I did. I think
And you
there's only been
just
2. I think I was the only other one. Yeah.
and you lose count. Some of these characters, right? They keep on getting rebooted over
Oh
time,
yeah. I mean,
so
I
you
was the
never know.
original on one show and then they replaced me 3 times and then it came back and everybody was like, the real Amanda is back. And I'm like, all right, this is just crazy. Yeah.
The
But I
real
see the
Amanda.
same thing. I mean, I've worked in several shows with the same actors that I've worked with in the other shows. So
But it's funny that only in daytime, I think they treat it as if nothing changed. Any other show, you can't just
yes,
put someone that looks
exactly.
similar. She's blonde.
Yeah.
Close
Oh,
enough.
or she's not. I mean, that's one thing is they replace you with somebody who looks like you. Sometimes they don't. And that's such a stretch for the audience. I'm like, how can you possibly expect people to do that? But
Yeah, you're doing
yeah,
daily episodic. It's a whole different thing. So, do you have any stories from GH that pop out? Because this is a show that I watched as a kid in my
I
mother's
did
womb.
too.
I mean, I remember Scorpio and Luke and Laura the first time around, and the whole WSB, all that
Yeah.
stuff. Man, I was watching as a kid. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
I know. It was
any
my
quick
favorite
stories or
too.
fun or something about anyone you worked with or a storyline you remember?
Yeah. It was one of the shows that I think I always wanted to be on, interestingly enough. And in the end, I kind of didn't want to be there all that long when I got the job. There was some discord, had nothing to do with me. It was the environment. And I later worked with, you said Scorpio. So I later worked with the actor that played Scorpio. And I said, hey, the vibe there was really not what I expected. And he said, yeah, it had changed. But it was a lesson for me in workspace environment that you may get the job that you think that you want, but if the environment is not healthy, You can take a check and go, you know what? Do I really want to be here? And is this where I am actually planted? Is this where I'm supposed to be? Can I do good here? And in that particular case, the show that I waited so long to be on, I really felt like I couldn't do good there. The writing was not something I was really proud of at the time. I was surprised and disappointed, very saddened actually, but I chose not to stay there very long. But it was cool because there I am in the show that I kind of grew up with, watching, running home from, I think, elementary school to like watch Luke and Laura and stuff, right? And there's the sets and there's the hospital. And like there was this kind of weird moment of kind of surrealism, It was neat.
Yeah. I want to actually ask something just that you mentioned is, the money's there maybe the dream, but something that the environment wasn't positive.
Yeah.
If you looked at career, whether it's running your own business or working somewhere, if you were to kind of rank values, so what's important? And I think, there's a lot of studies lately that have been happening with a younger generation. And I find it fascinating that the older generation, you said, what's the most important thing in your job? Like what would keep you working somewhere? And money's going to be really, really high. Number one, number two,
right.
Status, things like that. Now they're shifting into things like, well, how high is my contribution factor? Or is it supportive or flexible? Things like that. And money's still there, but much lower. What's just kind of for you? Like if you were off the top of your head thinking, I have a new job somewhere, I'm going to start a new business. What are some of the most important elements that you look for in an opportunity?
I would say a sense of honor within the culture. So an honor of people and their talents. If somebody comes in with a talent, don't ignore it. Put them where they do their best. If just an honor in everything, and honoring your clients, your customers, honoring your boss. I think there should be a level of honor for every one of those. Honor the people that are your competitors. If I see that in a culture of a company, I think that's really, and that's really great. It goes right along with integrity and respect. And when you honor someone and their talents, they're able to make a bigger impact and influence in that company for good. Hence, that whole sense of contribution gets increased just by honoring what that person is all about.
So would you say that's probably one of the top for you is kind of that honor, integrity, respect all tied together?
Yeah.
Really, really good. I love that. And you, of course, obviously you bring that into when you decided to start Charisma on Camera. I want to talk about that first. You spent, so how many years have you spent in television and acting?
Oh, do I have to say that? How many decades?
Well, you don't have to. How many acres of experience do you have?
Well, if I started, I literally have been in front of the camera since 11. And so I was doing commercials and modeling, but doing commercials and things, moving in front of a camera since that age. So, gosh, we are talking like basically 4 decades,
So you a ton of experience.
Yeah.
At what point did you say, because, 2010, you started this, you saw the gap, you saw people like me, people like our friend Bob Donnell, a little shout out to Bob, all the people, we know a lot of the same people in this circle, and you realize there's a lot of us, like for me, I could say, hey, I learned how to perform on stage live because I would be live speaking, but you put that little red dot or now the green dot of the webcam in front of me, and it's like, how do I talk? And the whole game has changed. Yes. And I've been doing a little bit of TV in the last couple of years, doing some morning shows and news and things like that. And I'll tell you, my experience has been night and day, as different as night and day are, television versus live performing. I can't tell you. So what brought you to that first? And then I want to maybe kind of pick your brain for a couple quick tips before we move on.
Yeah, I think I was attracted to that because I felt like I wanted to make I got to the point where I'd worked through a lot of my own stuff. Like I said, I believed all that negative stuff. And I think within a 7-year period, I had 13 different coaches, not to mention psychotherapists and all of this, because I was my initial thing was I need to figure out how to perform better. If somebody says, be me, how do I perform that? Which is wrong, right? Like it's the exact opposite.
Just be yourself. Okay, so what's the prompt?
Exactly. What's my motivation for being myself? Wait, hold on.
It's you.
Yeah. So that was it. It was like it turns out that my real thing was finding out what my gifts are, what I was all about. And I didn't expect that to be my journey, but knowing that that's what worked, I happened to be one of the performance coaches was a TV hosting coach. And she said, look, you're really good at this. Can you just do me a favor and take some of the newbies? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? She goes, can you teach? And I went, I can't teach. I don't know. Isn't that funny? I mean, Matt, you might have had that moment too, where somebody's like, go be responsible in this job. And you're like, I can't do that. And it turns out that you actually are gifted in that, but we don't know sometimes. So I was given the opportunity to teach television hosts, and I taught them and woke them up and found their personal, brand, I guess you could say, on camera, the same way that I found mine, which is kind of digging from the inside out, lighting them up, getting them out of their head, and letting them be who they actually were, and then giving them the script so that they could just use the words to be who they actually are. And I was extremely successful in that. And so that's one of the reasons that I started Charisma on Camera, was I thought, well, this way I can make I can make a bigger impact and be more in control of what I'm putting out into the world than I am as an actor. Because I'll work with people that are going to be impactful in society, and I can help them actually get their message out. This is going to be awesome. And that's the reason that I really sought to find entrepreneurs and visionaries that needed to get their voice out. And as you said, it actually isn't that different when you get really grounded in yourself and who you are and how you communicate, whether you're doing it on camera, whether you're doing it in person, whether you're doing it from a stage. But you do have to do a little shift in your perception to be able to feel grounded in all three of those things.
Well, and you mentioned the phrase kind of working from the inside out, which I really like. So you're taking, I want to be a host and I need to say certain things and I have my teleprompter.
Right.
But figure out, who am I, work from the inside out, and then let me come up, and then the real me, whoever I am, I'm going to read that stuff, and I'm going to perform that stuff, and I'm going to interact with someone. How much is for hosting? And this is just, you know what? Hey guys, this is my moment right now. I'm going to take the next couple minutes of this interview and ask questions I care about. So just bear with me for a second.
Oh.
I'm very interested in TV hosting.
Yeah.
I've been doing this radio show and podcast for a few years now, and really enjoy the hosting aspect, right? Of just connecting with people. And sometimes and you know how it is. Sometimes you have to bring out, not with you, but other people, I got to bring out the personality. Some people I need to kind of quiet down and let them shine, and it's this funny, weird balance.
It's an art form once you get to really have fun with it. It's a fun art form.
It is. Yeah. And I've said for years that I'm not creative. Like, that's a phrase, a flag I've planted in the ground, because I don't draw, I can't sing on key. I draw stick figures and everything around, hey, put together fashion, put together colors. I'm like, I got nothing. I'm on this like lame climbing t-shirt, I'm very bad at all that stuff. But then my wife goes, yeah, but when you're speaking or when you're, doing this coaching work, all of a sudden there's this creativity. So I love the idea of hosting. I've been talking too long. A couple quick tips. How much, like, improv is a good thing. And I see that sometimes on early morning shows where they're following something, but then they pop off, and the best moments are these improvised moments. How do you tap into that? Or is it getting out of the way of it? Can you talk to me a little bit about improv versus scripting?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I am a firm believer in, number one, if you're going to be seeking hosting or even guesting, it's really important that you know what your brand is, what your flavor, what do people love about you? So with really any of my clients, one of the basic things I do is a personal branding assessment. So we literally do that. We figure out, okay, by the way, your natural gift of being funny is actually what you should be using. And a lot of times that person is in an environment that they think, oh, I can't show them that side of me.
I need to be serious.
No, that's what people love, right? So to be able to say, no, it's okay, allow that. And suddenly then, like, there's actually more expression, there's more freedom that comes from being able to speak in your own, like, you on your best day is kind of what I always want people to feel. And if you're having a really good day, you can sit in a conversation with somebody and make it flow.
Right.
You're good, you're comfortable. And that's what we seek to achieve. So when it comes to the improv, where you kind of go off on the side and you make a few comments and you relate to somebody, it's, again, you're just building, if you're a host, you're just taking an opportunity to build another layer of that relationship with the person that is your guest. And if you do it in a very authentic way, they're going to be even more comfortable. So the more you do that off script, the more comfortable a lot of guests are going to be. Because the number one thing that all human beings want is to be seen. Do you remember Avatar? the
Oh yeah.
crazy blockbuster movie, right? Made ungodly amounts of money. There was one phrase in that movie that made it a success. There's one phrase. Do you remember what it was that the blue people said?
I'm going to guess it's, I see you.
Yes.
I see
We
you.
all want to be seen. So if you can interview or even let people know in a networking situation, right? From the stage, if you see somebody in the audience, let them know you see them, and not just in a superficial, oh yeah, well, you're an insurance agent, you would understand, but really say, hey, you know what? I know that this value is important to you. And because of that, I mean, you can do this in your videos. Just say, hey, if you're in my community, I know that you value this, right? Or in my sense, if you're in my community, I know you're probably a dog lover, an animal lover, right? Because I tend to attract those people. And so I can say that. And then suddenly the person watching the video feels like they're being seen. It's the same thing when you're hosting. You really want to be able to just, if you're doing an improv, come from that really authentic, natural place and let them know that you see them in whatever way that is.
That's so good. That's so good. How do you balance the other side of this, which is especially in entertainment, whether it's television, it's podcasting, it's YouTube, whatever it is, when you're hosting, you need to sort of like you need to be the one seen too. So it's like, hey, I need to be a personality and I need to let myself shine. Yet I also want the person to be seen. They need to be the important person. Could you
Right.
speak to kind of the balance of you being big, but also highlighting the people you were with? Because
Yeah.
that, to me, I can almost get tripped up in it because it's like, well, I need to remind myself that, oh, no, I need to be, more of me. But then I'm like, well, actually, no, it's all about them. How do I do that?
It's tricky. It is tricky. And I've hit that balance incorrectly a lot of times. When I'm interviewing, I've listened back and gone, oh my gosh, Sandy, shut up.
That
Right.
makes me feel better because I say the same thing every time.
Shut up. I'm so sick of hearing me. I want to know about them. But part of it is too, finding that balance is understanding, like I used to say to my hosts, I go, if your show is boring, it's your fault. And they would get this look. I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's kind of true. I mean, you're taking on that responsibility to be a leader. This is where the leadership, in communication comes in. You are leading the audience, you are leading the guests, and you have to do that in a way that's authentic to you. So your natural leadership abilities have to kick in whenever you need it. So if you need to go to a commercial and they're in the middle of a story, you have to interrupt in the correct way to say, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear the rest of this, but we got to pay the bills. Hang on one quick second. You find a way to do it as opposed to kind of fumfering through it. And it makes you a much stronger, assertive, not aggressive person. And I think knowing that, hey, I am in control. And because I'm in control, I'm going to draw my audience's attention to you because I think you're fabulous. Watch people that are really good at interviewing and you'll see this. I mean, one of the classics to observe is, believe it or not, Barbara Walters. I studied her because she would do those. Remember, she would do the Emmy and I think it was Academy Award interviews with people.
Yep.
And their thing was, you're not going to make me cry, Barbara. And what did she do? She always got them crying. It didn't matter if it was a guy, a girl, it did not matter. She got them crying because she got them so comfortable and had such rapport with them that she could draw them into where she thought the audience had questions that needed answered.
Well, it's like she made this space that people can be like, oh, I finally feel like I could actually just be me. I feel so comfortable with you. Yeah. And what a hard thing to do when you have 3 cameras and lights and boom mics and all these things around you.
So hard. Yeah.
It feels so artificial, right?
Yes.
But to get that real, that's amazing.
Oh, Oprah obviously is also very good at that. There's a sense
is she good?
of, she's pretty good.
She's
might
okay.
Have a future, that lady. Yeah.
I think I've heard of her. Yeah. Oprah
richest woman in the world.
Winfrey. That's what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Winfrey.
You know what I'm loving too is Ellen. I think, there's no next Oprah, but there's definitely a space that opened. And I've been watching Ellen in the last several years go from, oh, that'll be a fun show with a comedian turned host to really this iconic experience. But I'm watching her as a host and saying it's because of how she is with the people.
Yes.
More than anything.
And it's interesting that you say that.
Somehow.
I want to point that out because what you just did, see, this was something that I used to ask people when they would come to get their strength on camera. Like years ago when I started Charisma on Camera, I would say, tell me who some of the people that you like to watch are. And they would tell me, and sometimes they would be really in a line with how this person was showing up. I'm like, oh, of course. Yes. Like you saying Ellen. I'm like, of course, Matt, Ellen, you guys have some similar stuff, like in the way you interview and the way you are. And you're just kind of natural and sometimes self-deprecating in a funny way. You have a humor. So I can say, yes, I see that. And there are things that you can look at that she is doing that are probably already within you that you just need to pull out. And that's what I would look at. I would see people that would come that would maybe say, well, I love Ellen, and they don't have a single bit of what I see as a similarity to her. And I would say, what is it about her that you love? And they would say her humor, her this or that. So I would dig deeper, and I would go totally off topic with them and say, so tell me, what do you do for fun? And then they would give me who they really are.
Right.
And who they really are was what was attracted to the humor, because they probably had some humor. They probably had some of those things that the person they most admired was displaying, but they were holding them back. And so that really gave me a path to pursue sometimes, to be able to say, okay, so you like this person, and guess what? That's already in you. We're going to find it. We're going to pull it out. And when you do that, then it's like play day,
And this is a perfect segue to, I want to talk about the other piece as well, the charismatic cowgirl. I know.
Play day.
Yeah. And that's a fun title and a fun name and everything, but it's so much deeper because, and again, I remember when you first started telling me about the work you're doing with horses, you're coaching people, and a big part is trying to find who the person really is. And you say you can lie to yourself or to someone else, but you can't lie to the horse. Nope. Can you tell me a bit about kind of the origin of that, maybe your first few clients, why you went into this world? And then are you still, is that something you're still doing actively? And what is this all about?
We are. Yeah. It's like this, it's another pillar of what I do, but it's still all about connection, communication, and relationship. So it's really not that different. In fact, what it is the most natural experiential exposure to how you're showing up in the world. You're going to get the brutal honesty of a horse looking at you and saying, you're not really what you're saying you are. And in order to build that relationship, we do everything on the ground. We don't ride, at least not at this point. We don't ride with the horse-powered programs. And that's what all of them are called, by the way, horse-powered, because I started to work with corporate groups, including men. Good. And maybe they don't want to be a charismatic cowgirl. So I don't know. I'm just thinking some of them may want to be. More power to them.
I want to be a charismatic cowgirl. I'm going to camp.
Yeah. So I had to make a slight adjustment for that.
Yeah, no, I like the horsepower. That's really good. I'll sign up for that.
Yeah, horsepower sounds a lot better. But the charismatic cowgirl, literal, that women leadership and communication program that I developed originally, that was really based on the fact that I had seen the work in the therapy world that horses were able to do with children recovering from some of the most severe trauma that you can ever imagine. And when I saw that, I went, this is really cool. I have no idea what it has to do with me. It was kind of a freak thing that I ended up in this location to witness this. And it was almost 2 years later, I met a woman that was a coach, and she used horses. I will say she used horses at that point to do her work. And I'm like, wow. So there's not just therapy, there's like coaching with them. What's that all about? And I actually, for a while had another facilitator working and doing what I was doing. And I realized that there was something more to that. Like, you see something and you go, I hate to say this because I don't really know, but I think there's a better way.
Right. And I'm still new at this, so I shouldn't be thinking that.
I definitely thought that. I don't have the right to, but I think there's something missing. And for me, it was all of the years of when my mother used to ignore me, I would go out into nature and I became obsessed with animals and animal communication and interspecies communication. And it's always been like this side, crazy, stupid passion of mine, along with the human brain and human behavior. I was studying that. And so I was looking at the horses. I'm thinking, they're missing all of these cues. Like this horse is telling them stuff and they're totally missing this. So I did find a modality that actually acknowledged that. Hence, that's what you had mentioned, natural lifemanship is one of them. And it kind of turned me on to this whole thing of maybe I can do this myself. And then I got the download of the name for the women, Charismatic Cowgirl. And we found this location here that we bought without actually setting foot on the property here in Austin. Whole scary. That's a whole nother bottle of wine. But,
right.
But the barn here was actually built by women. So when I walked into the barn, it is a cowgirl barn. There's a bar in my barn that is decoupaged with cowgirls. Everything in it is cowgirl. And every time that I would think, I can't do this, I can't move forward, like Moses, don't send me God, I can't do it. I would get this literal, almost a voice over my shoulder going, I gave you the barn, now go. And when I started, yeah, and I had no excuse, right? You're like, yes, sir. Okay.
I gave you the barn, now go.
Now go. And I had so many reasons to not. When you're starting something new, I don't know. For me, I sometimes will sit, and I'm doing that with the podcast right now, Matt. I need you to kick my butt. But that with my podcast, not yours.
Yeah, no, it's time to get it out.
Yeah.
I gave you the
starting something
podcast.
new.
Now go.
Now go. I gave you Matt. Now go.
I love you
I
for
gave
that.
you your coach. Now go. But there is definitely something that I was felt very strongly about, even in the beginning when I felt like I was kind of clumsy. You know, anytime that you start, if you're a coach, you mean, Matt, I remember you, I'm sure that you can remember the first couple of people you coached. You're like, they're listening to me. What? Right?
Oh yeah.
You're like, am I doing this right? And then you see the results and you go, okay, I'm on the right track. I think I can do better. And then you hone it. And I always like to say that, you know, my crazy background of acting, studying human behavior, hierarchy of emotions and all of that, and then going into NLP to help myself and the hypnosis and all of this stuff. And then alongside studying the animals and understanding the natural world, my brother is a wildlife biologist, so he fueled that as well. I think it all kind of comes together in what I'm doing. And I can see women that come in, and men as well, that come in and leave a different person even in just a few hours. Because horses are prey animals. So they read energy in the environment. That's how they stayed alive for so many millions of years more than us. They've been here longer than us. And the reason that they are able to do that is they can read when energy shifts in a predator. That predator can be hanging out and sleeping, but when that mountain lion wakes up and takes a look and goes, I'm hungry, they know. And so it's
like almost a sixth sense for the horse, where we might not see the change in the predator, but they can sense it.
They can sense it. And here's the thing, they react to it, obviously. So it's like a billboard, right? That something has changed. Something is either right or wrong in their environment, and they're going to let you know. And so when we walk in and we say, I am totally confident that I can move this horse, and you're really not, that horse will turn around, look at you and be like, no, don't think so. Until you say, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I had one woman, and I have a picture of this too, where she finally turned to me and she put her hands on her hips. And she's a great, you know, very imposing figure to some people, was strong, appeared to be a strong leader. But she turned to me and she goes, I have no idea how to communicate with her. I'm like, great. Start your conversation from there.
So good.
Honor who she is, meet her where she is, and say, I have no idea what I'm doing. And sometimes that's the most difficult thing as a leader to do, but it's sometimes what you have to do. And you have to be vulnerable enough to realize that it's okay if you say, I don't know the answer, let's work it out together.
Do you think that
horse turned and started walking with her immediately when she said that? She put her hands down from her angry stance and lowered her shoulders and said, I don't know what I'm doing. And the horse automatically walked over to her. I mean, it's that clear.
Do you think that's something that leaders need to be doing more, like in general, in business, in the world today, having those conversations of, hey, if I don't know what I'm doing, I just want to say, I'm not sure what to do, but I want to talk to you about it. You know, those really real, frank, authentic conversations, or is there ever a time when that's not appropriate in your mind?
I'm sure there'll be times, depending on the situation. Yeah, there'll be times when it's more appropriate than others. But I think it comes down to that honor that I mentioned before. If you really want to honor somebody, instead of telling them or ordering them or being predatory, bullying about your leadership when you may not know that you're going the right course, is to actually sit down and go, hey, we got to figure this out. We got to make sure we're making the right decision. So
I'd like your help on it, or I want to run something past you. What do you think about this? And actually mean it,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
Really
and
good.
then have your boundaries in place, which is another thing that that this type of work does, is it forces you to recognize your boundaries, both personally and even when we're talking about asking for your worth. There are people, this will show up. This is the kind of stuff that shows up when you're working in that natural environment with a horse. If you're not assertive enough to ask for what you want, that's going to show up in how you ask for your value. If you're speaking from the stage and trying to enroll people into a program and you're a little shy about it, you're worried about whether they're going to like you, that's like somebody walking over to a horse asking it to pick up its feet and they don't really believe it's going to happen.
Wow.
And then I say, step back. I want you to envision what you want to happen. And the woman will be like, okay, I kind of do. I go, no, kind of isn't good enough. I want you to actually picture that horse picking up its feet. You are its leader. You're taking care of it. You go over and we have this little quick meditation. And if they change their energy before they even put their hand on that horse's foot, the horse is lifting it up.
Wow. And the horse didn't change. The person did.
No. They
this is
just change
very
the way they're. We humans do the same thing. See, we overthink things. When we meet somebody that isn't congruent, we know. We go, not really sure if I trust that.
Something's off. I don't know what it is.
Something's off. Right. But yet we continue in a polite conversation because we have the societal pressures. And in order to relieve the pressure, we're going to go ahead and continue that conversation. Whereas a horse is like, no, I'm out. I got nothing invested in a conversation. Don't even speak your language. So I'm out of here. I'm not comfortable. And that's when we realize, oh, wow. Leaders, a lot of times, if they don't know what they're doing, they increase their energy. A lot of times it comes from a survival mechanism, something in their life. It could be from trauma that they have established this, make the energy higher and everything will be fine. And
just do more of what's
right.
not working to make it work.
Right. Yes.
Sandra, this is genius and it's super inspiring. And I would almost say it's awesome. It is inspiring awe. And there's a lot of ways that you can continue, because I want to continue the conversation, but we're just about out of our time. You have something you do for people. You have these awe inspirations, prompts to increase positivity and focus every day. Guys, you can find out more about that at Sandra Dee, that's D-E, SandraDeeRobinson.com/awe inspirations. We'll have that in the show notes on demand. Can you tell us a little bit about what that awe inspirations is?
Yeah.
And what we're getting out of it.
Awe is, well, in all the work that I do, we do a lot with emotional regulation and self-empowerment, and the fact that you need to be focused in order to be productive, right? And a lot of times when people come into the horses, that's one of the experiences they have, is they have to be immediately focused. If you don't have a horse in front of you,
Which ability
to tap, you do not. Most people don't, like, hanging out in your apartment, you probably don't have one. So I'm thinking that maybe we might want to give you a way to access that immediate focus. And the emotion of awe is more recently studied than most of the positive emotions, and it will actually energize you. I'm sorry, it will focus you on the positive, but it will actually calm you. So then you will be at a very productive, positive state of mind. And so what this little prompt book does is actually helps you to tap into that within a few minutes every day. And you can reach that point that we get people to in the round pen with the arena, so that you can actually focus. And especially now, I mean, people are going through some tough times financially and everything. We can get into a state of overwhelm and anxiety. So it's a great tool to be able to have.
So and I love that, like, one of the most powerful states to be in, which I don't think of very often. I think of excited, happy, but it's awe. You're looking at this wonderful sunset that was created for you. You're sitting in front of a majestic, huge being of a horse. Having that awe and actually brings peace. So go to SandraDeeRobinson.com/awe inspiring, /awe inspirations. I'll have that in the show notes. And you can sign up and get connections with Sandra Dee Robinson all the time. She's going to send you tons of things for awe. You can also follow Sandra on Facebook at Coach Sandra Dee, and Instagram at I'm Sandra Dee. I'm Sandra Dee. And well, we'll leave that there. Sandra, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a genuine pleasure and fabulous to see your wonderful face again.
Thank you. It was so much fun. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Talk to you soon. Hey guys, that's the show this week. So thank you again to Sandra Dee Robinson. What an amazing, amazing human being. So much to unpack. I would encourage you to go back and find this show on demand. It's free. You can go anywhere where podcasts are, and you can listen to this again and again and unpack the camera work, unpack the confidence work, unpack the true to yourself identity work, and certainly go over and get that awe inspirations. That's going to be huge. So it's SandraDeeRobinson.com/awe inspirations. I'm going over there right now, and I'll see you next week. Get out there this weekend and stay driven, or whatever it is we're doing nowadays. All right, bye.